You might have heard that the Bible contains references to strange creatures like unicorns, cockatrices, and fiery serpents. You might even have a translation that includes these animals. Now, a few of them are symbolic and represent nations, people, or ideas, meaning that the biblical authors never meant them to be understood literally. However, other passages do seem to describe these beasts as actual living creatures. So how does a Christian understand these references? Critics have often claimed that the Bible refers to mythological creatures because it is itself a product of a mythological worldview. So critics mock any attempt to explain those passages. In the book Atheist Universe, The Thinking Person's Answer to Christian Fundamentalism, David Mills says this: creationists of the non-literalist variety will respond that dragon doesn't really mean dragon, that cockatrice couldn't possibly mean cockatrice, that satyr absolutely doesn't mean satyr, that fiery serpent wasn't intended to denote a real fiery serpent, that witch doesn't actually mean witch, and that unicorn most certainly doesn't mean unicorn. The great pretenders simply dismiss all Bible absurdities as metaphors and pretend that nothing in Scripture really conflicts with science. I also find it revealing that in the newer modern language translations of the Bible, these ridiculous passages of Scripture have been dishonestly excised, rewritten, or edited beyond recognition from their original translation in the King James. So not only are the great pretenders forsaking long-honored and long-held Christian beliefs, but the Bible itself, under their supervision, appears to be experiencing a quiet, behind-the-scenes Hollywood makeover as well. Like other critics of the Bible, Mill suffers from two significant problems. First, he doesn't know anything about ancient languages. And second, he doesn't know much about the Bible either. Just a couple of small issues. Well, he isn't the only one who points out that the King James Version refers to creatures whose existence has been debunked by science. But is he identifying a legitimate problem with the text, or is he missing the mark? Let's look at some of these creatures and see. The first on our list is satyrs. Ancient Greek art depicted these nature spirits in various ways, but most people think of satyrs as beings that were half man and half goat. They were known for their love of women, wine, and music. Early English versions, such as the King James Version and the Geneva Bible, include the term, but later versions removed it because it was a mistranslation. The term that early scholars mistranslated as satyr is the Hebrew word satyr, which means a male goat. It appears almost 60 times in the Hebrew Bible, almost always referring to a goat, and usually to one being used as a sin offering. Just by looking at the context, we can see that this word describes a male goat, not a creature from Greek mythology. The second creature on the list is the unicorn. Legends about unicorns appear in the writings of ancient authors like Strabo, Pliny the Elder, and Aelian. Ancient descriptions vary in specific details, but they typically describe the unicorn as something like a horse with a horn protruding from its forehead. Once again, its inclusion in the King James Version is because scholars at the time mistranslated the Hebrew word re'im. They rendered it as unicorn when it actually means wild ox. The Hebrew word is related to an Assyrian word rimu, which meant something similar, perhaps a now extinct species of cattle known as an auroch. Well, a close look at the Bible reveals that the re'im has more than one horn, and other texts make it clear that the re'im is an ox when it includes the term in parallel statements referring to calves and bulls. And the reference to unicorns in the book of Job shows that the re'im is a draft animal because the text refers to it being used for plowing, and plowing is for oxen, not whimsical magical creatures. The third creature on our list is the cockatrice. According to various sources, this mythical animal is born from a chicken egg incubated by either a toad or a serpent. It's depicted with both bird-like and reptilian features and has the ability to kill other animals with a single glance. The Hebrew term translated as cockatrice by both the King James and the Geneva Bible is tsiponi, which should be translated as viper or poisonous serpent. The term is used in parallel with other Hebrew words referring to snakes or serpents, making it pretty clear that it doesn't refer to some fictional monster. This is underscored by the fact that the existence of the cockatrice only goes back as far as the medieval period. It appears for the first time in European mythology in the 12th century AD. So obviously it would have been only slightly impossible for the biblical writers to mention a mythical creature that wouldn't even be invented for another 1,000 years. The fourth creature on our list are dragons. The Hebrew word translated as dragon in the King James Version is tanim, which refers to large lizard-like animals. One passage refers to an animal that cannot be anything other than a mammal, because the word is describing a creature that nurses its young, which reptiles do not do. Given the fact that the word sometimes appears in poetic literature not meant to be taken literally, means that it's impossible to claim that the biblical authors believed in literal, flying, fire-breathing dragons. The fifth item on our list are fiery, flying serpents. References to these snakes in the Pentateuch call them fiery serpents. The word for serpent there is the common Hebrew word nachas. But why are they described as fiery? One suggestion is that it refers to the effects of their bite. And there are parallels to this in ancient Greek literature, where snakes were named for the conditions that resulted from their bites. So there are snakes labeled as thirst, inflammation, and swelling. And there are two references in the book of Isaiah which refer to serpents as flying creatures. But there are some significant considerations involved here. First of all, the word fly can also mean to move quickly or to vanish, and at least one of those references is used metaphorically to describe a human ruler. So again, there's not really anything fantastic going on there. So of all the creatures we've seen in this list, all of them are the result of either misunderstanding on the part of modern critics or mistakes on the part of early scholars who mistranslated the text. The literature and mythologies of other ancient peoples regularly feature incredible creatures and fantastic monsters. But unless they're being used metaphorically, the Bible is one place you're not going to find them.